By referral only. By referral only. These are the three magic words that every single real estate agent should pine for to ultimately get to in their business. And I have the master today. So happy Wednesday. It's another incredible Wednesday wisdom. I'm Tony King, and I have the incredible pleasure, the honor of sitting with none other than the man, the myth, the legend of San Antonio, and really all of Texas. Mr. Dayton Trader is with me today, and he's going to be teaching us how he built a business that is completely self-sustainable. What would it be like for you to have a completely self-sustainable business that grows on its own, right? It's growing by its own measure, and he's done over 10,000 transactions, almost all of which are by referral only, a friend of a friend being referral. So without further ado, I got Dayton Trader. Dayton, please introduce yourself. I'm sure that I mangled your list of accomplishments. Y'all, I asked Dayton for some bullet points to introduce him, and he sent me like 4 pages of stuff. That's how accomplished this individual is. So I'll shut up. Dayton, please introduce yourself, and we'll take it from there, sir.
Well, Tony, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm super excited to be here. This is my 4th year anniversary with EXP. It's my 41st year in the business. This is all I've ever done. I grew up here in San Antonio. The first house I sold was Super Bowl Sunday, 1982. Nobody else wanted to work that day, and I was low man. And so I've been at it ever since. I've struggled for many years. I'd love to say my entire practice has been by referral only. I lived on sign calls. There was no internet back then. So I lived on open house, floor duty, and sign calls for probably the first 10 or 15 years. And I did not live very well under those circumstances. It was ugly. Interest rates were 16 and 17%. This town was going to dry up and blow away. I just didn't have anywhere else to go. And so people were nice to me. They poured into me when I was a nobody. And I watched some of the people that I really respected and tried to follow what they did, how they dressed, how they spoke, how they handled their business. And I was fortunately in the right place at the right time, kind of my Forrest Gump life. I've been blessed so many different ways. And so things started picking up in San Antonio a little bit. And then in 1995, I went to a by referral only seminar, which is where that came from. It's a trademark by Joe Stump, which is a phenomenal coaching company. Man, when I went to that event, and that was in Dallas in 1995, and the light went on above my head, the angels started singing. I came back from that deal. I got rid of my pager. I took my home number off my business cards. I promised myself I was only going to work on a referral-based business. And I did. And I really started working on that. And then that just grew into another coaching company emerged called The Core. And I've been with them since day one. And so that's when I made the big jump. I went from being $10-12 million producer, which was okay by San Antonio standards, but not really big time. To last year, we did about 140 million, about 400 sides. And the thing I'm proud of several things, but one of them is that 88% of those closings were referred to me by somebody. So I'm not a Boomtown guy. I'm not a Zillow guy. I'm not a Tiger Leads. I don't spend any money on any of that stuff. I work really hard on my database and my referral partners. Curated that database for a long time. Really cultivated those referral partners and those relationships. And that's been the game we played for a long time now.
Wow. So you mentioned the light bulb going off, and that's our logo, right? So we're going to hope everybody sees that, right? We're going to hopefully have some light bulbs going off for some people today. I want to talk about that, Dayton. So what was it about that Joe Stump training? And he's incredible, right? Absolutely phenomenal.
Best off stage ever. Absolutely the best ever.
Absolutely. Now, what was it at that seminar in the 90s that flipped that switch for you and said, hey, I need to do this, and you took that instant change? What was it?
Well, it was a combination of things. That's when we found out. That's when we had our one and only baby was in March of 95, and I needed to find a gear that I didn't know I had. And so again, right place, right time. I went to that event, and it was a couple of days of just scripts and dialogues and processes and overcoming objections. And it was all the things that I needed at that point. I'd always been a seminar junkie. I was a Zig Ziglar guy and a Tommy Hopkins guy for years and years. And I read those books. And when they finally started doing tapes, I listened to the tapes and I role played in the car. And I was getting better at that. But those processes And the notion that you could have a referral based business was an eye opener to me. And I thought that just made a complete sense to me. It's a little bit more life balance. And I'm still a volume junkie, don't get me wrong, but it was a lot more life balance. It was not talking to strangers. It was really working the database, pouring into my clients and their experience, and making sure that I earned the right to ask for that referral. And if I did a great job, and the scripts and dialogues that came with that program were phenomenal. And so if I earned the right to ask for that referral, I could do that, and they turn around and give me an opportunity instead of me sticking a sign in the ground and then chasing down a bunch of other deals. And so it was a great script. I worked it really hard, and it works. I mean, it absolutely works over time. You just got to get good at it and practice over time.
That's great. That's great. And I think that really, is a great strategy for everyone to look at, right? As we're looking at what the mountaintop looks like, it doesn't get much higher than Dayton Trader. I mean, I don't know if he just kind of dropped those numbers and breezed past them because it's not a big deal to him anymore. But over 400 transactions last year, over 400, much more actually, because I can see the numbers on my, but a lot more than 400 transactions. He's being modest, and he says almost 90% of those, 88, and he knows his numbers, right? So 88%, almost 90% of those are referrals from previous clients. So that really is the benchmark where everyone should be focused on, and all these other strategies that we've been talking about, gang, over the last goodness, we've been doing this now for I think almost 6 months, and the third-party lead generation stuff and the open house stuff, and all the other incredible lead generation strategies, the KV Core CRM stuff, all these different strategies are a great way to get someone into your database, right? And when you get them into your database, then you bring these strategies up to keep them over and over, year after year after year, and then you end up spending zero, right? Your marketing budget should be to a point like Dayton's, where you're spending less and less on trying to procure business and more on trying to keep that business coming in. So Dayton, what are some of the misconceptions about running a referral only type style business?
Well, if you come from a scarcity mindset, and I certainly did, fearful, no money in the bank, really struggling financially, it's a challenge, because you feel like you've got to scramble all the time, and everybody's looking for that magic bullet. And I've been down a lot of those rabbit holes. Hey, hey, buy this lead, or buy these leads from us, or pay us a huge referral fee, and we're going to feed you all these leads. I did all of those things, and I found out over time a referral based business is just better. It's more profitable. It's a lot more fun. One of the things that we stratify our clients is there's A, B, and C clients, and an A client is referred with value. They're ready to do something now, and they'll play by your set of rules. Referred with value, ready to do something now, will play by your set of rules. A B client is missing one of those elements. They either weren't referred with a sign call, internet hit, open house, any of that. They're not referred with value. You're just a commodity. You're just an overpaid Uber driver, and they will cut you out as quick as they can because you're not in a relationship with them. If they're not ready to do something now, you got to deal with that. If they won't play by your set of rules, they won't get qualified by the lender that you direct them to. They won't stage their house correctly. They won't kennel the dog correctly. They won't price the house correctly. They're not playing by your set of rules. We can live with some B clients, because not everybody's an A client. You can live with some B clients, but if they're missing two or more of those elements, they're a C client. And that's why most realtors don't last very long in this business, because that's all they've got. They've got, maybe I'll buy, maybe I'll sell. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to keep shopping for a lender at the last minute to save an eighth on the rate, or I know more than you do, or whatever the circumstances are. And that's where most people just get beat down, and then they go buy a FSBO, or they go buy from a builder, and the builder cuts you out, or something like that. And I've been the victim. That's a weak word. I've had that experience many times in my career, and we're still not 100% exempt from that. You can't account for everybody. However, it's a much better practice. It's a much more balanced practice. Like I said, it's a lot more lucrative. And I'm not paying out huge referral fees. I'm not going to, and there's always somebody that can outspend you on Zillow, there's always somebody that can build a better mousetrap on a lead capture system or whatever. But if it's really good, they're going to turn around and jack up the fees they charge you, or they're going to divide that zip code 5 more ways or whatever. And when Realtor.com calls you or Zillow calls you and says, hey, it's your lucky day, a spot opened up in the zip code, that's because somebody else's credit card didn't clear. And that spot opened up, and now they're trying to jam you with that deal. And so I won't bite on that hook anymore. I can't stand those guys. They're trying to put us out of business. And I don't mean to get too partisan on this call.
Hey, listen, hey, this is this is a show, man. Come on.
And EXP is a disruptor. Don't get me wrong. I can live with it. Remax was a disruptor, and I was with Remax for 37 years. They were a disruptor. EXP is certainly a disruptor. There are disruptors, and they're trying to put us out of business. And so you keep putting money in their pocket, it's going to come back and bite us as an industry. It already has. I mean, they've taken a significant market share and opened the door for these other iBuyers and all these other programs. And so it's just the evolution of the industry. But I'm telling you, you've got to circle the wagons on your database and your relationships, because that's what's going to survive.
And I'm glad that you could not have ended that sentence better, or that whole diatribe better. And I think that it's important to remember that some things never change, right? And the things that never change is that you need to be spending as much time in front of your clients, in front of your customers as humanly possible, and wowing them with service, sweeping them off their feet, so that regardless to where that lead came from. And again, if you're brand new and you have no other way to gain business, you got to get them from somewhere, right? And that's one of the common questions that I throw out to people I have on the show is, if you had to start over, had to start from scratch, what would you do, right? With no contacts, we drop you off in a market that you've never been in. Hey, you go to El Paso and grow a business, Dayton. You got to start with some lead generation strategy, but the execution of that is what allows you down the road to build this business that generates its own business, right? You build the machine that builds the machine. And I think that is one of those things that, to your point, never ever changes. So I love that about you, and I love that about that mindset. So how do we go about that, Dayton? I mean, and not only have you done it, but you built an incredible team. You've been doing this for years. What do you teach agents? Because it's one thing to do it yourself, right? But how do you instruct your team and individuals that you bring into your organization to build businesses in the very same manner that you've done?
Well, again, the really good lead generation creates more opportunities, gives you greater revenue. Greater revenue, you can attract and retain better people who take better care of the clients, who free you up to do your really high dollar productive activities. And if you get that snowball going in the right direction, then you're off to the races. And if you have bad leads, and then you're exhausted when you get home, and you can't afford to hire staff, and then you're got a side hustle because you need to puts food in the fridge or something like that, you're going to go the wrong direction. And so it takes work. There's no shortcuts to it. But if you're determined, and one of the advantages, and I know about that much about KV Core, but we teach at our title company, we teach classes about that all the time. And thankfully now I've got people that do all that sort of thing for me. But I kid you not, when you can take all the names in your phone and stuff them into KV Core, and then start marketing to them, squeeze pages, landing pages, all the lead gen tools that are already built into your EXP experience, you're missing out. So you've got to be super disciplined about doing that. And I tell people all the time, from my coaching standpoint, from a flat-footed start, if you said 10 names a day for the month of April, you could have a 200-person database by the end of the month. And that's pretty weak. I mean, that's really not. You could do that again in May and have a 400-person database. That's something you might actually make a living off of. But if you've got 300 or 400 people in your database that know you, have a vague notion of who you are, and you're in some sort of relationship with them, at least they know your name, then you got a better chance of getting those deals and living off of that. And then if you want to scale it and leverage it, then that's a whole nother conversation. You can get by on personality and charm and all that sort of thing. That's good for 1 or 2 deals a month. We all know that agent that's got, their hair, they run around with their hair on fire, sticky notes everywhere, their voicemail is always full. If you get them, they're at the grocery store, or their kids screaming in the back of the car. But people love them. They're charming. They're attractive. People love doing business with them. But if you want to grow past that, you've got to have systems and structure, checklists and things like that. And if you want to get bigger than that, then you get that'll get you 2, 3, 4 deals a month, which in most markets is pretty good. Back in San Antonio, back in the day, when we were making $1,800 on a deal and splitting that 50-50 with our broker, you made $900. Now we're making almost $10,000 a deal. So that dynamics change. You don't have to sell a lot of houses to make a good living, or certainly replace the salary from some other industry with a much better lifestyle. And so, but that's the systems, the structure will get you 2 or 3 deals a month, maybe 4. And then if you want to get bigger than that, that's going to come from leverage. And leverage is part of your team as you build your team over time, which is very difficult to do. Don't get me wrong. I still haven't figured that out yet. We made enough mistakes that we managed to get one right every once in a while.
You're doing okay. You're doing okay.
All right. Santa Claus may or may not make the trip this year. It's too early to tell, but I think we'll be
there. We go.
And but leverage is going to come from your referral partners that send you 2 or 3 deals a year, and from your team that frees you up so you're not going back doing and not to be disrespectful. Let's call it what it is. It's $20 an hour work. And yeah, you can outsource it and you can send it somewhere else and you might get it done for $4 an hour. But if you're not doing that, if you're not making $250 to $500 an hour, which is what a good salesperson ought to make, and what is a realistic number in this industry, at least in our market, you should be making $200, $250 an hour. So you can either do $250 an hour work, or you can do $20 an hour work. And we got caught up too much. We spend way too much time doing $20 an hour work, and then are scratching our heads wondering why we don't make any money.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, that's the playbook. That's the playbook. So what I love to do, and I love the fact that you really broke it down into different categories. And so many times that's what I see, right? Even as the broker, I see agents that are, kind of just, maybe it's a part-time thing where they're doing, a few transactions a month if they're lucky, between 6 and 10 a year typically. And that's one level. And then you have those agents that are doing it full-time, and, maybe they're doing, a few transactions per month, but it's consistent. Maybe they're up to 40 or so transactions, 40, 50 transactions a month, or a month, goodness. Yeah. 40, 50 transactions a year. And then you have the top producers, right? Megas that are doing 100 plus, in some cases, several hundred plus like yourself. And we talk about that leverage. So really what I'd like to do is break each one of those down and talk about, because I know you're a coach as well. So let's take a look at what that looks like for those agents that are maybe doing it part-time. How do they get into doing it as a full-time and replacing that income? And then once they're actually doing it and they're running around like that chicken with this proverbial head cut off, how do they leverage? How do they execute? How do they build that business and execute some of the strategies, the systems that you're talking about? Let's go deep. So let's start with level one. What do you coach folks to when you're just getting started? Maybe they're doing it part-time. Maybe they're doing a deal or two every other month.
Well, and that's the beauty of EXP. And that is, you can't do that at Remax or Coldwell Banker. And the fees are too high. It just doesn't make sense. That's not their deal, which is fine. But the reality of the market is that about most agents only average 5 or 6 deals a year. And so, and if that is part-time money, Disney money, retirement money, that's okay. If that's a side hustle, that's okay. That's the reality of the market. That's not going to change. It hadn't changed in my entire career. It's always been the number, 5 to 6 a year. You can do that at EXP. There's so much reduced friction, overhead so much better. It's just a better environment and a better model. And it's available to everybody. And then if you want to scale it, then you scale it. And so what I tell people all the time is you got to play your game. Don't play Dayton Trader's game. Don't try to be the Franklin team. They've been at this for a very long time. They've been at this for 40 years. Jimmy was a monster producer in Houston. Andrew is super sharp, one of the smartest guys I know. They've been really good at this for a very, very long time. I've been choking on his dust for 25 years. Because he was always number 1, 2, 3 in the state, and I was always kind of number 4, 5, and 6 in the state. And that's how Jimmy and I got to be friends, and that's what brought me to EXP. And so,
but we got you both. So
yes, sir. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. I think I could jump off a cliff with Andrew, and he'll figure out how to build a parachute on the way down. I mean, that's believing that guy.
Sounds about right. Yeah,
I know. I don't doubt it. And so they figured out how to scale it, and so we've done that too over time. But you got to decide, what do you want? What do you want your business to look like? What does your lifestyle afford you? We've all got different responsibilities and obligations and other things to do, pulling us in different directions. I've got some advantages in that I've got, uh, built the team, got the scale, and I'm super spoiled. I don't cut my grass. I don't clean the pool. I don't have to go to the grocery store. All that gets handled. So all I got to do is show up and sell houses and cultivate relationships. I know other people don't have that luxury. And so it takes a little while to get it built, but you got to just play your game, whatever your lifestyle affords you, whatever you can pour into this business, because there's not another industry that I'm aware of that with a lower barrier to entry, lower capital requirements, where you can make the kind of money you can make as a salesperson. When you're not carrying the inventory, you don't have to stock the shelves, and you're getting a little piece off the top. That's a huge deal. I mean, it's a great model as an industry.
So I love the fact that you talk about cultivating relationships, Dayton, and we are in a relationships business, right? Yes, it is sales, but it's sales is a relationship business, for crying out loud. So that said, what kind of strategies do you put in place to ensure, because you don't just stumble upon 400 deals a year with 90% of them being a referral. So what does the strategy look like to follow up? Do you have follow-up campaigns? Do you schedule specific times of day where you reach out to your database? Is that daily? Is it weekly? What does that look like for you?
So I've got a system and a checklist and a subroutine for just about everything we do. I'm really a process guy. I'm not a big personality. I'm not a super great salesperson. But I'm a really good process guy. And so we make sure we've got really good processes, and then hiring the right people that can do it without being told every single day. I don't have to micromanage them because I'm not a good manager. I'm a good boss, but I'm not a great leader. And so when I finally figured out I could afford better people, tell them what I wanted, and then get out of their way, and they execute at a high level for me. They keep all the promises I make. They get it done. And I can review things and look at things and say, okay, I think we can squeeze a little bit more out of this or a little bit more out of that, and so on. But that's been the biggest part of it. And so just figuring out what I wanted to do and how big I wanted to get, and then working that over time. And like I said, this has been a 40-year evolution. This is not, right. And even if you say the first 10 or 15 years, I was really struggling. But then after that, it's still been 20, 25 years of mistakes, and I made a million of them, a lot of self-inflicted wounds, thankfully none of them fatal, but a couple of close calls. But we've hung in there and been blessed with a great market in San Antonio, a great economy. That didn't hurt any. And so,
right. And as you talk about some of the systems and things that you have in place, you don't just sit around. And I think this is one of the misconceptions about a quote unquote, referral based business is that, you sit around and wait for the phone to ring. Right. And it don't work like that. Right. So how do you, I guess, balance the active nature versus the passive nature of a referral based business?
Well, you've got to be proactive. You've got to go pursue the relationships, because everybody you're talking to already knows 5 other realtors. So now you might have eliminated the other people in your market, but you haven't eliminated the 5 really nice people that they know that are neighbors or go to church with them or their kids play together or whatever. So now you got to figure out how do you differentiate yourself in that space. And for me, early on in the business, it was designations. I mean, I really went all in. I got my broker's license in '84. I got my CRS, my CRP, my CCIM. I mean, I worked really hard on designating my ABR, ABRM, CRB. I got all those designations so that I could differentiate myself from my competitors. I just looked a little bit more professional, a little bit more accomplished. It mattered to me. And if it didn't matter to the client because they knew somebody from church, well, there wasn't anything I could do about it. But if it was a semi-level playing field, my credentials and ultimately my resume would win more times than not. And so, but Jack Welch that used to run GE was a great businessman. I mean, he was a tough guy, and he was the one that would say you rank everybody on your team 1 through 10, and then you fire the bottom 10%, which works once or twice, but then after that, you're kind of cannibalizing some of your really good people, and it's not great for morale. but he was super competitive. One of the things he said that I loved was, if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. If you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. The flip side of that is where you do have a competitive advantage, you got to go all in. And so you've got a competitive advantage in the relationships that you have. Maybe it's an alumni association, maybe something shared values, shared sacrifices, even better, but at the very least, shared values. Shared sacrifices, we were in the military together, or we were on a team together. That's shared sacrifice. Shared values is, I like them, they like me, we'd have dinner together, we're aligned in a lot of different ways, and I want to hang out with them. That's shared values, whether it's church or school or other things that bring us together. And so a lot of times if I'm in front of a bunch of people, I'll find somebody who's been in business for less than a year. And I'll say, who on the front row, second row has been there? And some hand will go up and I'll say, great. They call you for a listing appointment and they call me for a listing appointment. We go up both out there. It's a level playing field, head up, you against me, who gets that listing? And more than half the time, of course, I'll say, well, I will. And really, your resume against my resume, your credentials, my credentials. Come on. Do you really think you're going to get that listing? They go, well, no, probably not. It's great. You went to high school with them. Who gets that listing? Well, I do. Well, they know your folks. Who gets that listing? Oh, well, of course I would. Well, your kids play with their kids. Who gets that listing? You would. What's the difference? You're in relationship with them. They know you, like you, and trust you.
That's the trump card.
My resume is still the same. My resume didn't get any worse, but you're in relationship with them. And that makes all the difference in the world. That's the tiebreaker, because people do business with people they like, and people do business with people who are like them. And so, so I've got a competitive advantage in certain aspects of my business. I don't have a competitive advantage on Zillow. I'm not going to compete on Zillow. I'm not going to compete on Realtor.com. I am going to compete with certain constituencies. Texas A&M, UTSA are great brands to be aligned with. I've got a competitive advantage in that space. The neighborhood that I live in San Antonio, this beautiful country club neighborhood, I'm inside the gate. I have a competitive advantage over some agent. I don't have a competitive advantage with a guy that they've got a relationship with. But if the realtor, the client who was abandoned by their realtor 8 years ago and hadn't gotten a piece of mail or a call or anything from them, now I got a shot at that deal because I live inside the gate.
Wow. So much to unpack there. Goodness gracious. Thank you, Dayton. So a few things I think there. The first one that I love is as we talk about the resume building and we talk about how to differentiate yourself. And that is so much, it's always important. But as we head into this market shift and as we head into, kind of what, and the market's coming up a little bit, we're going to see what's going to happen. But the reality is it never hurts to stand out. So whether there's 10,000 agents or 1,000 agents or 100 agents or 10 agents, right? You need to stand out. And to Dayton's point, designations are a huge part of that, right? And I think that one of the biggest mistakes that I see agents make is when they're putting their designations on their business card, or they put their designations in their email addresses, or whatever sort of collateral they're sending out postcards, and they simply put the initials, right? They put CBRE, or they put just the letters, okay? And the unfortunate thing is that nobody knows what that means outside of the people that also took that course, right? So if you're a certified negotiation expert, let's say, and you put CNE, you just put CNE behind your name, nobody knows what the heck that means. But if you write certified negotiations expert, if you write certified probate specialist, if you write certified this or that, and listings representative specialist or buyers representation specialist, those sort of things, and you spell them out thing after thing, line after line after line after line, that's when you start to stand out, and they say, oh my gosh, this guy really has studied his craft. This lady certainly knows what the heck she's doing. Is that true, Dayton? What are your thoughts on that?
It's been my experience, and I think most of the general public thinks we're the nice little old lady at church that sells 5 houses a year. And
most of us are.
and that is unfortunately that is our industry. However, and that's fine, and not to disparage them, that's their deal, but they don't really have a clue how much you can actually make. And I've seen it in people's eyes when they say, well, we did call it 140 million. And they think, well, 140 million. let's see, that would be 4.2 in fees. No way he made 4.2. He probably bought a refrigerator or two, or bought some drapes, or cut a deal here or there. But he still made 3.5 in fees. I wonder, and they can't get there. They can't do the math on, and they look at you and say, "Oh, there's no way you make that kind of money." I go, well, that's cool. I don't really want.
Okay.
But I'm telling, but and I know not everybody does, but it can. I mean, hell, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. I mean, there's no super magic secret sauce to it. It is just hang in there for a long time, never quit learning, ask a lot of questions. I am competitive, but I'm not a high D. Everybody thinks they're a D. It cracks me up. And so if you do a disc profile, I'm a lot of S and C more than anything else. And so, but I'm a super competitive S and C with a chip on my shoulder. So that's not always healthy, but that's been my fuel for a long time. So
I love it.
uh, so
I love that. So, and as we talk about leveling the playing field, which is something else that you mentioned, and how you are able to, almost without, you remove the competition, right? When you're in a relationship, and that's the only way to do that. And I love that. But the issue I think that some agents face is staying front of mind with their friends, family, neighbors, their own internal sphere of influence. What are some of the strategies that you use to stay front of mind? Because as we know, sometimes they forget that they go to that their barber is a realtor, or that their mother-in-law does real estate.
I mean, we've all had that call where somebody says, "Hey, my spouse just got their license. Would you talk to them?" I go, really? And so that was a client that I had for years and years and years, and now sweetheart got into the business. Well, they'll be out of the business again in 3 years, but that cost me half a dozen deals over that I should have. That happens all the time, and so staying top of mind. We mail to them, we call them, we do client events. I've had a Santa party at my house for over 25 years, with milk and cookies with the big guy, and we'll have 200-300 people come through the house to get pictures with Santa in my living room. And we do client event parties, happy hour, missions baseball game. We've got a AA baseball team here in San Antonio, so it's not horribly expensive to get the pavilion, and invite your VIP referral partners. There are other people that do Easter egg hunts, pumpkin patches. We've done movies. We've done a lot of movies on, first run, G-rated, Saturday morning family movie, because that's your demographic. Those people with 2 or 3 kids, no other people with 2 or 3 kids, that's the sweet spot. And I got fat for 25 years on all my friends getting married, having babies, getting promoted, getting divorced, getting relocated, moving back to San Antonio, getting remarried from about mid to late 20s to up into their mid 50s. They're moving every 5 to 7 years. Once they get into their late 50s, early 60s, they're not moving anymore. They got one deal left in them. And which is why I really pivoted towards the referral partners more than just the database, because the database isn't going to keep performing at the same pace or velocity that it has for the last 25 years. Relo business isn't what it used to be. People working from home don't need to move all the time. And so we work really hard on the VIP. The good news about the VIPs is that they're still working at the highest point of their career. They're the most influential they're ever going to be. They've got colleges to pay for, and weddings to pay for, and retirements to fund. So they're still working, and I work those relationships really hard. So they don't need me anymore as a principal, but they will refer me. And if that person puts their arm around me and says, "Dayton's your guy, he's going to take great care of you, don't argue with him," I'll close a high percentage of that business.
That's great. That's great. And that also keeps costs down on staff. It keeps costs down. It keeps stress level down, all that, when you can build this referral business. So I love the fact that you do all these events, and I think that's so cool. And I actually did a podcast 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, with someone that Alan Stewart, our managing broker down there, in San Antonio. And this is exactly what we talked about, which is, and there's a term for it now, experiential marketing, right? Where you're creating experiences, whether it's the Easter egg party, or whether it's a Christmas party, or whatever your thing is. So what are maybe your top 3 experiential marketing type events that you put on and seen a great result and a great outcome from? Top
Well,
three.
the Santa party is the best, and we've done that for a long. And I've had kids come for years and years. And I even had one young lady walked in last year. Her parents carried her into the first one, and she comes back. She's 18 now, senior, getting ready
Wow.
for A&M, and so she hadn't been to 18 Santa parties, but she'd been to 13 or 14 out of her 18 years. And so it
Wow.
was kind of cool. That was very special to me because I love her folks. They're really nice people and great clients of mine. And for their baby to grow up in this deal was kind of cool. Having people to your house is the most intimate. I mean, if you can host a dinner, host a barbecue, it doesn't have to be, white glove waiters. It can be barbecue in the backyard or pizza in the pizza oven or something like that. But that's biblical. When you bring people into your house and break bread with them, that's huge. If
Yeah.
that's not your thing, we love doing happy hours. There are people that I coach that are LDS, so they're not going to do a happy hour. So then we do a bowling event, or we'll do something else. And maybe it's a volunteer event. Maybe you gather up people. My team is doing the food bank this Friday.
Oh, wow.
We'll take 20 of us will go to the San Antonio Food Bank and spend 2 or 3 hours there, getting real humble and at what these other people's circumstances are and remembering how blessed we are. And so it's a good reminder of that. But so it doesn't have to necessarily be super expensive. There's lots of lenders out there right now that are scrambling for business. They might sponsor something with you or co-sponsor. You can teach classes on personal budget, on money, on helping them with their business, helping them with their relationships. There's any number of things you can do that are no cost or low cost, but you got to do something. You got to get in front of them, and you got to be consistent about it and keep delivering at a high level. And then when you get the opportunity, you got to really crush it on the deal side, on the advocacy side, managing the transaction, loving on them, managing their fear during the entire process, really being technically competent on the contract and things like that. And I think a lot of people don't spend enough time really reading a contract and asking questions about it. I know you can go online and there's plenty of people there that will answer your question, but that's not going to do you any good when the client's sitting there looking at you. And going to a title company and letting them take you through a closing so you know what that looks like, talking to a builder and reading the builder contract so you can explain what binding arbitration is and what substantially complete is. And you look like you know what you're doing when you're getting ready to pick up a $10, $12, $15, $20,000 check. You better be able to answer those questions or they will leave you in the dust and go find somebody else.
Wow. Yeah. Sorry, did I cut you off? Go ahead.
No, just being a better student and school's never out.
I love it. I love it. So, by the way, speaking of school never being out, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Dayton has already given us at least $100 million worth of worth of value already, and y'all get it for free, right? Whether you're with EXP, a lot of folks are on this, watching this, subscribe here, are not with EXP. Doesn't matter to us, but make sure that you hit like, share, subscribe, and click that bell, that notification icon, so that whenever we go live and whenever we post a video, you get notified. So. Now back to the action. School's never out, Dayton says, and I could not agree more. What are some of the most influential, right? We've already talked about Joe Sumpf, but what are some of the other most influential classes that you've taken or courses that you'd recommend or designations that you'd recommend someone to take advantage of in order to excel to the level to which you've done?
Well, I'm going to do that in reverse. So designations, I do not have my GRE. I skipped that step. I got my CRS, and that will be the last check I write. I will never give up my CRS designation because I've made
spell them out. You got to spell them out. You got to spell them out. Remember,
residential specialist.
There we go. Got it.
That is a great designation. It's great for referrals. There's only about 2 or 3% of the realtors have that designation. It's in my mind, it was very prestigious. And the people that I really admired and respected had that designation. And so I just thought, well, they're successful. They're good at what they do. They're professional. That's who I want to be. The GRI should be the minimum standard to get your real estate license. That is a great designation. It's a great training program. It's not cheap. It is a little more arduous, but should be everybody's first. I would tell you, I skipped that step. I got the CRS at the right time. I had my broker's license, and so I had a couple of advantages there. After that, the accredited buyer representative or a manager, it's ABR and ABRM. Those are great designations. CRB is certified residential broker. It's a nice network. I don't use a whole lot of that. And then of course the CCIM, which I'm very proud of, that's the certified commercial investment member. And I earned that designation 15, 20 years ago. And it's very prestigious, very hard to get, very expensive to get, takes a lot of time, but it really differentiates you in the market. If you really pursue commercial real estate, then that's the gold standard on the commercial side of the business. So
that's great.
That's the designation. But when I got in the coaching program, what I loved about it was I needed a boss. My broker was a nice man, but he wasn't helping me build my business. He was trying to keep the lights on and the doors open and recruit other people. And so he wasn't of much help to me. My friendly competitors down the hall would answer a question, but they're not interested in helping me at all. And so getting involved in the core coaching program 22 years ago has been a game changer for me. And so having a boss, being in a peer group of other really big producers, like-minded professionals, the stuff that we share back and forth, the systems, the processes, the checklists, the dialogues, all of that has been phenomenal. And I've been all in with that company now for 23 years. I've been a coach for them for the last 16 years, and it's just been a game changer. So I have to do a personal budget every single month. I have to do a P&L every single month. I track every single lead that comes through the door. And I can tell you what my conversion ratio is on that, all that stuff. And so it's very metrics driven, system, structure, and accountability. And then you can scale it. Again, I coach people that do 3 or 4 deals a month, which is what you need to do to be able to afford the program. But they're not interested in doing 10 or 15 or 20. They can make a great living. And I mean, a great living, I mean, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 on 3 or 4 deals a month. They're in the right price point, right part of the country where you're making 20 grand a deal. In San Antonio, we make about 8 or 9 or 10. So I'm more of a volume junkie. And then I've got other people that do 20 or 30 transactions. They're building out their team, growing their team, trying to figure out how to hire, how to figure out how to retain, job descriptions, metrics, and things like that. And so that's a whole nother ball game when you get bigger. Something I'm still not very good at, but we're getting better at it. That's a whole nother skill. That's why you get a degree in management, which I don't have.
All right. And coaching. So you talked about coaching. What about different books or seminars that are, real estate specific? In any of that stuff that you'd recommend?
I've got a long list of books. I'm a big reader. So Influence by Robert Cialdini is one of my all-time favorites.
That's a good one.
I've given away many copies of that. The Go Giver, I just gave away 2 more copies of that. I've probably given away 100 copies of that book. I think it's the gold standard for just building a business and I think who you need to be as a human being, who I aspire to be as a human being. I loved Principles, which was a really meaty book, but it was really good, fascinating, and Atomic Habits. And even get into all the other stuff. I mean, just you name it. Anything by John Maxwell, anything by Patrick Lencioni, The Advantage, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, The 4 Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive, The Ideal Team Player. I've read almost all of his books. He got a new one that just came out, which I've got to go find and get a copy of that and read it. And so love that stuff. And I've got a whole laundry list of other books. Raving is mandatory in our coaching program. And so.
Great. So as we get ready to wrap here, what are, I guess, the biggest takeaways, right? So, and this is always the question that I try to end with. If we dropped you off in a brand new area that you've never been in, you had to start from scratch, how would you build your business to what it is today? Knowing what you know now, having been in real estate since the 80s, poured into, done all this stuff, and what would you do? We dropped you off in the middle of West Texas somewhere and said, all right, go.
All right. So back to Raving Fans was a setup on that. And that is, Rule number one is know what you want. What do you want your business to look like? 2 deals a month, 5 deals a month. What do you want your business to look like? Rule number two is know what the customer wants. What are their expectations? And then rule number three is only work with people who want what you want. And so that figuring out that would be the first thing. Okay, here's what I want. I want to sell 3 houses a month in this new market. And I want to work with people that are like this, first-time home buyers, move-up buyers. I only want to work with reload. I only want to work with listings, whatever it is, and so on. So define that, because that's your call. It's 100% your call. What do you want?
Goal.
You can cultivate a database, but it takes years and years and years to curate a database. And people ask me all the time, how do I get more listings? Well, you could call FSBOs and expireds, which I would not wish on anybody. Or you can sell houses for about 10 or 15 years and they'll start calling you back. And that's what I did for early part of my career. I sold a lot of houses. I drug a lot of buyers around, and then we managed to hang on to them, keep in touch with them, and parlay that into something else. The fastest way to make money is going to be referral partners. Identifying the VIPs and the rock stars that are in your world, that will take your call, that will meet with you face to face, that can send you a couple of deals a year. That's where the real money is. And my boss and coach in the core made me do a census of the transactions we closed last year. And what I found out was I had 112 people sent me 3 deals each, on average.
Wow.
And so a lot of people have 1 or 2 referral partners, send them a couple of deals a year, and then they kind of disappear for a little while and then they come back. And so the good news was I had 112 people that sent me 350 deals. The bad news was in the 2 prior years, I'd had over 200 people that had sent me business. So I lost 80 or 90 people along the way. We either chainsawed the deal, they transferred their affections, they got out of the business, we neglected them, somehow we lost that relationship. And so I'm playing in 2 sandboxes, and certainly the 112 that were successful with in the past 12 months. It's all fresh in their mind, and I really want to take care of those people. But I got to go back and account for those other 90 and figure out, what do we do? Where do we drop the ball? What do we miss? Where can we get better? And they might have gone away quietly, just grumbling, or they may be out of the business. But we're certainly not perfect. And so I want to figure out what we did wrong, what we can do better, and see if I can't get them back to neutral, if not back to positive, and sending us business again. So
and I love that. When you mentioned that, do you have a question that you ask? Let's ask it a different way. Do you have a question that you ask for referrals? I mean, do you explicitly ask for referrals, or is it rather organic? Because I hear agents, kind of on both sides of the fence, that are major producers. Some of them are like, hey, it's all organic. I don't have to ask. I just stay front of mind. Other ones are, hey, I specifically ask every single month, who do you know? It's in our newsletter. See how much your house is worth, all that kind of stuff.
I am very unremarkable and unmemorable. So I don't take the chance that, oh yeah, Dayton, he's such a great guy, we're going to refer him. I don't believe that for one second, because they know 10 other people that are realtors that are really nice people too. Some of them know a little more, some a little less, but they, and we lost one on my street where she said, well, you're doing fine, I'm going to give this deal to my friend. And it was a $700,000, a really nice house. And I'd seen them 3 or 4 times over a couple of years in their living room talking about selling this house. And then they double crossed me at the last minute. And so I would never take that for granted. And so I ask all the time. I think you have to. You might get by on charm and personality. If you've got that gravitational pull and people love you and you're just a fun person to hang out with, and they send you business and you deliver, that's great. That is not me. I am not that guy. I'm not the life of the party. I'm just a grinder. And so I've got to ask, hey, are we taking great care of you? Have I earned the right to ask for a referral? I really need your help. I'm looking for work. I just put a beautiful family in this house and I'm out of business. I need to find somebody else. I just sold this house. I need another listing. I need your help. And people don't want to ask that question, because we were all brought up, hey, you rub some dirt on it, you're going to be fine. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Don't show any weakness. Don't ask for help.
Do it by yourself. Yeah.
Man up. Do it by yourself. And we all had that little voice in our head growing up. And then you turn around and say, hey, I really need your help. I want to make sure I'm taking care of you first. However, I need your help I'm looking for I got a great house in Happy Valley, can't find a buyer. I got a great family looking for a house. Who else do you know? And if you don't ask that question, you could be the nicest, most technically competent person in the world, and they'll go, "That's great. Next."
Right.
And so
Yeah. So who do you know? And I love the fact that you focus on that. I know this is kind of sales 101, but we do have some new people on the call, right?
yeah,
So I think that it's important to emphasize the question is not, do you know anyone? Because the brain looks for the easiest way out, which is no, right? Do
I
you
give
know
out your
anyone?
card all the time. I give out your card all the time. Well, that doesn't help me any right now.
Right, absolutely. So and I'll come back to that in a minute, but the question is not do you know anyone? It's who do you know? Who do you know that's looking to buy or sell in the next month, 6 months to a year? Who do
Well,
you know?
even more specifically, who do you know? You guys are going to Lamaze classes. Who else do you know that's having a baby?
Wow.
You're relocating into San Antonio. Are you bringing anybody with you?
Wow.
Or is the person whose desk you're taking, are they headed somewhere else? And you ask a more specific question, then you're going to get a better answer.
That's right.
So who
That's so
else do you know that's getting married, having a baby, getting divorced, empty nester, inbound reload, outbound reload, got a promotion? You got a promotion, congratulations. Who's taking your spot? So if you just say, do you know anybody? They go, yeah, I give out your card all the time, and you don't get anywhere. So it's got
Yeah.
to be a more specific ask. And then one of my other favorite books is Never Split the Difference. It's
Yes, I read that last year, and it's
not,
a game changer. I love that one.
this guy's a hostage negotiator, and
Yeah.
and I won't ruin it. But one of the things he said was, "All the yeses don't mean anything until you get a no.
Right.
The yeses don't mean anything until you get a no, because now the no is all right. Now we found an objection. Let's isolate the objection, overcome the objection. That's sales 101.
Right.
What's your fear? Is it trust, control, quality match, organizational consistency, or bang for buck? What's your fear? And isolate that objection and say, okay, if I can show you how our processes work, or I can show you all my thank you notes and all my Zillow reviews. I can't stand Zillow, but I still got a lot of Google reviews and everything else. If I show you all that, can I help build trust? And so on. So that's where the money is isolating that objection, overcoming that objection, and getting that referral partner locked up. That's the fastest way to build a business.
It is, and I think that one final piece that I'll add here is that I've seen a lot of agents be really successful with not just giving the business card, not just saying, "Hey, please share my information with someone that you know that's looking to buy or sell."
I love
that's
referrals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I love referrals. Yeah, okay, thanks. Keep it moving, right? So one of the things that I do is, and I've seen agents have amazing success with, is instead of just the passive strategy, when they say, "Oh yeah, I got to, my brother-in-law is looking to move, or my sister-in-law, whatever," I'll give them your information. And then you can say, "Oh, you know what? That's fine. How about we do a group chat, right? Or group text. Or if you're sitting at the closing table, hey, let's take a selfie together and send it to them. They'll think that's fun, right? And take a selfie with the brother-in-law, all right? And then send that and say, hey, I'm here with Johnny. We're talking about you. I helped him find a house. He said that I might be able to help you too, right? And throw it in a group chat. So again, and just take control, right? This is your business, your future. This is your family's future, for crying out loud. Take a risk, right? Get out there and be aggressive towards your goals.
Well, you're right. It's part of it's checking your ego. I mean, that's the thing where people say, "Well, I shouldn't have to ask. I shouldn't. They should refer me. I mean, I killed it for them. Are you kidding me?" And that's just your ego talking,
right?
And that will ruin you every single time. And so, remembering that there's, in San Antonio, there's 15,000 realtors. In Dallas, there's 30 or 40,000 realtors. I mean, it's a commodity business, and so you got to find a way to differentiate yourself. And basically outwork the competition. And especially this year, it's going to be tough. It's going to be, the rest of 23 is going to look a lot like the second half of 22. I think 24 is going to be better, but this is a circle the wagons year. It's been a great run, but now you got to make sure you've got really sharp knives in the drawer for the work that needs to be done.
Not for anyone that subscribed to this podcast, not for anyone that takes Dayton Trader's advice or takes my advice. We're going to make it as easy as possible for you. Just do what we're suggesting, right? Success leaves clues, as Jim Rohn always said, right? Success leaves clues. That said, any parting thoughts, Dayton? How do folks get a hold of you? Maybe.
I'm pretty easy to find. So Dayton.Schrader, DXP Realty, or Dayton at the Schrader Group. But you Google me, I should pop up pretty quick. And I appreciate any opportunities in San Antonio for a referral, inbound or outbound. If you're interested in the core, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about our coaching program and what that looks like. I can share with Tony some of the scripts and things like that. I mean, he can turn around and disseminate or however he wants to. But I'll be more than happy to visit with you. I've got a great babysitter that takes care of me. Her name is Jamie, and so she can set us up for any time on Calendarly or whatever. So if you're interested in having a conversation about coaching, I'd love to do that. If I can help you out with a referral in San Antonio, I'd really appreciate that opportunity. And if there's anything I can do for you, please. Like I said, I've been very blessed. People poured into me when I was a nobody. So I'm happy to help and do whatever I can to help everybody else prosper.
I love that. I love that attitude. Love that mentality. Y'all know as well how to get a hold of me. Any of our fabulous EXP agents, you can hit me on Workplace Chat. That's going to be the best way. Everybody else, hit me on LinkedIn at Tony D. King. That's going to be the best way. And as always, you know how we end it by telling you that you are right. We spent an hour here learning from someone that's doing north of 400 transactions a year by referral only. He told you exactly how he did it, exactly what you need to do, with a little parenthetical for me on the side, right? Being the broker of 10,000 agents almost. So with that said, either if you watched all this and you said, yes, I can do that, you're 100% right. Like Henry Ford said, right? If you watched all this and said, oh, that won't work for me. Oh, it won't work in my market. Oh, it won't work because I don't know anyone. Oh, it won't work because of this or that. Hey, listen, you're right about that too. You're 100% right. Either way, do it or don't do it. The choice is yours. I got your back. Dayton's got your back. If we can help you, let us know. That's all we got for today. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Great week, and God bless. Thanks, y'all.